I don't even know where to begin, so we're just going to start, okay? His name is Dr. Andrew Guajardo. He is from New York. He moved to Utah in 2018 and was working as an assistant at the medical examiner's office. In 2024, when our chief medical examiner, Dr. Deidre Amaro, began to rule the roost, she decided to select him as her deputy. So he was promoted in 2024 when she got there to the role of deputy chief examiner. Okay. So Charlie Kirk, we were told, things are kind of shifting now, but we were really told that he was murdered by a trans furry kid on a rooftop, a gamer. I do want to say there's still no proof of him being trans or into trans furries beyond the influencers that were immediately sent out to tell us this was a left versus right war, that there was an LGBTQ narrative here. We were also told that he confessed to his crime to his friends, his fellow gamers, on Discord. Here are some of those messages that he tells them that he's speaking to people, Jug, Barnaby, Marina, we've got a girl in there, a guy in there. And he says, hey guys, I have bad news for you all. It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry for all of this. I'm surrendering through a sheriff friend in a few moments. Thanks for all the good times and laughs. You've all been so amazing. Thank you for everything. It's just such an odd thing to do, to just keep confessing, right? Lance Twiggs, Tyler Robinson's alleged boyfriend, has indicated in his interview that Tyler was very into gaming. Not politics, he said, but gaming. So we have a storyline which involves trans furry gamers, to be specific. Now, of course, the majority of the public is suspicious, right? Just suspicious to say the least over the text messages, the Discord confessions, even more so after seeing the Spider-Man ninja who jumped from a Lozy rooftop with the skill, precision, and fearlessness of a SEAL Team 6 member. But after listening to the preliminary hearing, we suspect that Tyler, it's plausible, could have been set up by Lance. His prints are everywhere. He lives with him. He had the login to, it's plausible that he could have a login to his boyfriend's Discord. That wouldn't be strange when you're dating someone and living with them. His prints were less degraded, certainly, than Tyler Robinson's were on the gun, which had dust in the barrel, so likely wasn't even fired. Who could have had access to Tyler's stuff? The Discord element just feels a little fetty, right? Just a little federal trappy, I might say. So who is this Dr. Andrew Guajardo, right? Anything that might be of interest in his background? That was kind of how Ashley began. She was like, oh, I'm wondering about the medical examiner. I wonder who he is. I said, yeah, we should get to that. And it turns out there's something very interesting to know about him. And it's who he's married to. His wife is someone who might be of interest, who might be an expert in this category. Honestly, they might bring her in as an expert because Dr. Andrew Guajardo is married to a furry. I kid you not. Or at least, the very least we can assert is that he's married to someone who encourages, supports, works with, and propagates the culture of furries and occasionally dresses up as one herself. He's married to a woman named Dr. Ashley Brown Guajardo. And here she is. Meet Ashley. Now we obviously turned the sound off because there was music as she was dancing as a furry, and she was promoting her book, and she used the hashtag, furry. We're going to read what this book is about before I tell you more about her, because this is just so incredible. Let's pull this Penguin Random House book that she was promoting. She published this book, Play Like a Fangirl, okay? And can you scroll down because it tells you us the description. I don't know if you can make that bigger, but my eyesight's always so bad during pregnancy. It says that the book description is about how women and queer gamers can express and elicit excitement, creativity, and desire in online gaming communities and beyond. How do cosplayers, modders, fan artists, fan fiction authors, and TikTok content creators build communities for marginalized and underserved fans of games? In Play Like a Fangirl, Christine and Ashley and Tanya, these are the Our authors are going to look at the collective efforts of such fans to create meaningful and arousing connections to the video game worlds, to characters, and to one another, using pleasure as a lens. They show how fans' playful practices both reflect current cultural values and shape how we relate to video games and ourselves. They develop the concept of what they call the fangirl gaze to show how communities of fangirls can be regarded as oppositional, subversive, and transformative in terms of societal expectations and gender, play, and sex. Okay, you get the idea. Now, you're probably wondering how Ashley became a doctor. How did she become a doctor? Well, sociology, right? Sociology is how she climbed the teaching ladder. After achieving her degree, and guess where she achieved it? At Arizona State University. She then earned her PhD in sociology overseas at the University of Manchester, and then she became a teacher. She's access to preschool kids. What we learned from her bio is that, quote, previously, Dr. Guajardo was faculty at Brunel University in London, and then the University of Utah. Been there for almost 10 years, last 10 years. She won awards for innovative and inclusive teaching at both institutions. Since 2017, she's hosted a weekly educational Twitch stream on games user research methods. She's also held several leadership positions in industry and academia facing professional organizations. She was vice president of the Global Game Jam Conference, co-director of IGDA's Games User Research Special Interest Group. I'd like to see who funds the IGDA. And currently serves as the president of the Digital Games Research Association. I would like to see who funds that. If I know about the feds, this is how they move money. Give me an association, a 501c3, we'll get money in there. Anyway, as I told you, she's the author of many books, but also the author of Sexuality in Role-Playing Games, dozens of book chapters, journal articles on fandom, sexuality, particularly video games, tabletop role-playing games, and she's currently working on a book which explores how fantasy can shape your sexual desire. But the biggest thing that I want to underscore is just how deeply submerged she is in gamer culture, how deeply tied she is to the gamer community. And for the last 10 years, she's been in Utah. And she works and explains the philosophy of how gamers can engage with characters, create characters outside of themselves. That is her expertise. She encourages and explains how people effectively can sort of separate from their real life persona. And that, by the way, is what a furry is. It's not like it's the LGBTQIA thing. I had to look this up. I'm going to read this to you. I was like, I don't even know what a furry is. It says, the term furry describes a diverse community of fans, writers, gamers, and role players. Most furries create themselves an animal character called their fursona, with whom they identify and can function as an avatar within the community. So this is not me, this is my avatar that is separate from me. So you guys remember when Lance was testifying and he said at the preliminary hearing that he goes by Luna? And for some reason I felt like it was going to be some anime. I was like, what? I don't think he's trans. I think this is going to be some gamer thing. I suspect that is what Luna is. It's a gaming character that he engages with outside of Lance Twiggs. Okay. Here is how Dr. Ashley might explain how that engagement works. Take a listen.
So erotic role play is different from cybersex in the sense that in erotic role play, you have this role play component, meaning that people are not, at least explicitly, playing as themselves. They are not seeking out sexual interaction in a game or in a chat room or otherwise as the human being that they are in their day-to-day life. They are playing the role of a character, perhaps in a fantasy world, perhaps from a popular franchise like Star Wars, or just their own original character, but they are playing this character that is different from them with different wants, needs, hopes, and dreams, and they're engaging with erotic content. So cybersex, on the other hand, would be when people want to engage with sexual content online, or, If it's phone sex, then it's through the phone, but that would be as themselves. So in terms of practice, what are we actually talking about? Well, the two are very similar because at the end of the day, you're still using a keyboard to type out your erotic thoughts and feelings and emotions. The difference being that one person is doing it as a character and one person is doing it as themselves.
Okay. I would like to again stress the point that Dr. Ashley has spent the last 10 years working as a professor in Utah, okay, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, encouraging her students and her gamers to join her on her Discord, to follow her Twitch, her streamer account. And I'm wondering, how big can this community of gamers that are into this be throughout the state of Utah? I'm wondering, have we identified everybody on this Discord chat? I'm wondering, is this a coincidence? How big can this community be? And similar to Dr. Amara has left the building. She's no longer at Utah. Ashley and her husband they've now gone to New York. He's accepted. Now he's going to be the chief medical examiner in New York, and she's going to be teaching at NYU. We should pull up her LinkedIn, by the way. We should pull up just to show, not barred from being around kids, actually encourages it. Now she's the assistant arts professor at NYU full-time. So they up and left. Associate professor, I guess she left ahead of her husband. I don't think that's right because he didn't leave until after, obviously, he did the medical examiner's office, and they are married. But assistant professor, University of Utah. She's just been around students for a very long time. So again, I'll ask the question, how big can this particular gaming furry create a character that is outside of yourself, join me on Discord, Twitch community in Utah be? Has she ever come across Lance Twiggs? That'd be a question that I would ask. I just feel like that's a question that I would like to know the answer to across her 10-year career in Utah, and also being on the board and working with these outside organizations and associations, studying these people and encouraging this lifestyle. I'll leave it at that because I am just jaw on the floor with all of this. So Charlie effectively had a lesbian, because Dr. Amaro was dating a woman, and Deidre Amaro, and I don't know what to describe Dr. Andrew as. Andrew Guajardo, I guess. I don't know what he's married to. He's got to be remotely into this. Too many coincidences. Moving on from that, interesting little tidbit for you. Remember how Frank Turek described them receiving scrubs from the hospital? And I've always found that to be remarkably suspicious. You don't just get surgical scrubs at an ER because you're covered in blood. Still, by the way, nobody knows why or how he got that blood on him, because if Brian Harpole is to be believed, he was doing all of the work while Rick Cutler was holding him, while Frank was praying in the back. So we asked the question, how could these stories be so different, where Frank says he did CPR and Brian says he didn't? Did Frank just write himself into the story because he needed to explain why he took off all of his clothes to the hospital and was wearing scrubs? Because it would be pretty weird if you did that if you were not, in fact, covered in blood. There'd have to be another reason that you did that if you were not, in fact, covered in blood. But like I said, Brian doesn't recall Frank doing CPR. Frank says Brian was distracted and just didn't realize what he had done for the last 30 seconds. He just got distracted on this remarkably short car ride to the office and didn't see him lay Charlie down flat and start doing mouth-to-mouth CPR. Okay. But we had all sort of wondered aloud, what exactly happened to their clothes then, right? Brian's, I cut Charlie, I took the shower. What happened to the clothes? Well, I will say Frank Turek's name was not explicitly mentioned, but I did hear that the feds, the FBI, took the clothes from certain members of Charlie's security team down to their boxer briefs, took their clothes. Down to their boxer briefs, the FBI took their clothing. So how are we to digest that? Well, in a normal scenario, we would think, oh, great. They obviously did that in an effort to collect evidence. That's what they should be doing, bagging the clothing and sending it to be stored for further examination or in case it comes up. Maybe further testing, maybe it'll come up in throughout the course of the court cases. But this is not a normal situation. These feds were not doing anything normal, right? We know this because we learned that the feds immediately had the car towed, sent away, wanted it cleaned and resold. They didn't take it and go, oh, let's keep this for evidence. They said, get rid of the car. So I don't think that they said, get rid of the car, but let's keep Brian Harpole's or Rick Cutler's boxers for evidence. In my mind, they likely took their clothes and had them destroyed. That's in my mind. I don't know that for certain. It's an unknowable thing unless you are Tyler Robinson's defense team and you can demand access to that sort of information, which I would if I was on Tyler Robinson's defense. Down to the boxers. The feds took it. You see, I'm a person who actually, just to be clear, so that I'm on record, I want the judge to come back in September and say that there is enough evidence to move the case forward, that the influencers were convincing. Me and Turning Point in that regard, we're kind of rooting for the same thing, but for different reasons. I personally just want to see how long they can keep this farce going. I want more information to become available to the public. I want to see them do that thing that's going to happen more like, I don't know. My body cam just went out at the exact moment when I found the screwdriver. There's going to be a lot of that. I want the story to become increasingly more cartoonish, for the influencers to become more radical, because I think it's needed for the world to awaken to what exactly it is that rules over us. I also want to mention a little bit more about this hospital. Another very interesting tip that we received, and I believe this is a potentially explosive lead. And in the interest of protecting the source, I'm going to remove the narrative and just tell you the facts regarding what allegedly took place. Now, many of us have noted how odd it is that there were no eyewitnesses to the extremely erratic, chaotic, and utterly improbable ER scene that was depicted by Brian Harpole, where are the witnesses? Where are the witnesses, we wondered, to this middle-aged man jumping on a stretcher which he treated himself to. Treat yourself, take a stretcher on your own if you feel you're important enough. Then took out some scissors, who knows where he got those from, maybe from his bag, jumped onto the gunshot wound victim, cut a Freedom t-shirt in half to prep for a defibrillator that nobody mentioned to you, while going back and forth with the surgical team about what drugs to give to Charlie. That clip can never be played enough, by the way. It's so far beyond ludicrous that we should take a listen to it again.
We get to the hospital. Actually, we make it to the hospital through the traffic. We've got full wound pack in. We get out and we carry in to the door. Once we make it into the door, we see a gurney on the left-hand side. We put him on a gurney and then I wheel him into a room. I start giving the patient information to the staff there. I end up getting on top of him and cutting the shirt that he had on off, that white Freedom shirt. And so I cut it off so they could get to him, so that I didn't articulate this to them, but I wanted to get that stuff off so they could put a defibrillator on him. And so, and then started talking about pushing drugs. And so I was back and forth with them on drugs and defibrillator. And so then, once you get that shirt cut off and moved out of the way, there's enough of medical professionals in there. And so I just want to get out of their way. And so I got out of their way and walked out of the room and stood outside the room and held guard on the outside door of the room so nobody else could come in there.
Okay, so that's a man who fell asleep watching Dr. House reruns. Okay, he just pictured himself as Dr. House. None of that was real life. I love the part where he's like, and then I excused myself. Like I could have stayed in longer, obviously, but nobody asked me to leave. I just was like, okay, let's run through the drugs. I need 2 grams. I need 2 milligrams of this. I need 4 milligrams of this. Hey, bring in this. Who's got the tea? Okay. All right. There's enough for you guys. I'll see myself out and I'm going to guard the door. none of that takes place in a real emergency room setting. We just know that that doesn't take place in a real emergency room setting. I am so tired of having to play stupid and interested in these narratives that they keep spinning that are coming from TV. Okay? He is not in charge of deciding what medicine to give, to administer to a patient that you've rushed in and said has a gunshot wound. There would actually be more security protocol, because you'd be thinking, did a husband shoot his wife? You don't just trust people. Now he's got a pair of scissors. You just would be like, you need to see yourself out. Thank you. Not this guy. Anyway, back to our question. Where are the witnesses to the events that took place that day at Timpanogos Hospital? Where are they? That's a scene. Didn't they see him doing that? Didn't they see Dr. Harpole House? Well, listen to this. I am told that at some point in the 10 o'clock a.m. hour on September 10th, so to be clear, and this is crucial, over 2 hours before Charlie was shot, the Timpanogos hospital staff directed everyone who was in the emergency room into a different wing of the hospital. People were not sure what was going on. The staff was directed to move everyone in the emergency room to a different wing of the hospital. Then after some time, at approximately 11:30 a.m., patients were informed that they would be transferred aboard shuttles to Intermountain Hospital. That's Utah Valley Hospital. And that's what happened. All of the emergency room patients and all of their files were then transferred to Intermountain. So there's effectively no trail outside of hospital cameras, which have been conveniently seized by Kash Patel's office, of these patients ever having been at Timpanogos Hospital. Now, there are a few things I'd like to say here. First, there's always a trail. There's always a trail. Somebody somewhere drove that shuttle bus, booked the shuttle bus, saw the shuttle bus arriving at Intermountain Hospital, was working at Intermountain Hospital when a shuttle bus stopped and people emerged and files mysteriously then were transferred. And if you are that somebody, that one body, please email us. By the way, I just want to mention, if you were one of those patients, you probably should also contact a lawyer, but you can't pull that off without something. There's also some techie people, maybe the Google satellite imagery, this shuttle, somebody's going to look up shuttle companies. Was there a weird trip that day? Let's get on that. More tips at CandaceOwens.com, because if we are able to prove that this took place beyond a shadow of a doubt with paperwork, then I would say foreknowledge of Charlie's assassination can no longer be disputed. So again, please email us more tips at CandaceOwens.com. Now, I can tell you I trust very much that this information is accurate. And I would now like to remind you guys of another fact, which I think supplies some credence to this claim. A story which we broke way back in October of last year, on October 28th, to be specific. We couldn't figure out why, but we were like, Charlie has a hospital file that was at Utah Valley Hospital. We were so confused by this. Somebody had leaked this to us. People who worked there were certain that he was being treated at Utah Valley at Intermountain, because not only did he have a file there, but they were specifically instructing people not to touch or open that file. Do you remember that? I'm going to show you that file again. October 28th, we did this episode. Do we have that file